Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the LMAT podcast. It's a Friday. It's the last Friday of February, which means we start November. We start March tomorrow in March Madness, and we're going to get to all the March Madness nonsense later in the show. But right now, we're going to talk this today about spring training. We're going to talk a little bit about the NFL Combine, and then we're going to talk about college basketball because it's getting exciting. It's getting close, and there was a lot of exciting stuff that happened in the last few days. And right now, I just want to say good morning, Elliot, and how are you today?
Good morning, Matt. I'm doing good. Here we are, February 28th. Hard to
Yeah.
believe it's moving fast. Tomorrow's
Wow.
March 1st.
Unbelievable. First 2 months of the year have gone so fast. But let's get to spring training. We're going to go quickly in spring training. We're not going to talk a lot about that. We'll get to the beginning of the baseball season as we get closer to the end of spring training. But I guess the big news, Yankees, John Carlos Stanton, two bad elbows, back in New York under personal reasons. Some people are saying he's done for the year. He's going to get double surgeries. Other people are saying there's some person. I don't know what's going on. I don't think you know what's going on. That and I mean, who's playing third base for the Yankees? That's my big question.
That's a great question. I guess right now it's Oswaldo Cabrera and the DJ LeMahieu and Oswald Peraza and a cast of thousands. That's the big question for the Yankees. Third base is a weak spot. Hearing a lot of good reports. Everybody's really excited with the double play combo at Chisholm and Volpe. So a lot of excitement, and Aaron Judge will be coming back starting probably tomorrow.
No, I think he plays his first game today. Uh,
Today, okay.
PJ, I think, plays his first game on Tuesday, and we'll see what happens. Nolan Arenado made the trip across from Jupiter to St. Pete to see not St. Pete to Tampa to see his old buddy Paul Goldschmidt. He said it wasn't a showcase yet, as you told me earlier. He batted 4 times and struck out three. So if it was
Yeah,
a showcase, it didn't go very well.
yeah. If he was just going to visit Goldschmidt, he would have batted in the first inning and sat the rest of the game. But he batted 4 times. Didn't really show the Yankees much. But as of right now, it looks like Arenado is going to be staying with the Cardinals because the Astros have basically, they've moved Altuve to left field and they've made some moves around, and their roster is pretty well set right now.
I would think that, excuse me, I would think that looking at Nolan Arenado, you have to say he's now a trade deadline pickup. If third base continues to be a black hole for the Yankees, and they still manage to be, in contention or in first place in the East, as we get to the deadline, that's a guy that that I'm sure Brian will be focused on. As far as the Mets are concerned, no new pitching injuries the last couple of days, so that's a good thing. Uh, and let's give a shout out to Clay Holmes. We ripped him so much last year as the closer and give him blown saves. He had another three inning outing yesterday, pitched well, and looks like he's prone to make the transition to starting pitcher. So good on you. What else can I say?
Yeah, absolutely. Clay Holmes. I mean, if he pitches like he did for the Yankees the first half of last year, that's fine. I mean, hopefully, he doesn't wear down. That would be the thing I would be afraid of if I were the Mets. But so far, so good with Clay Holmes.
Yeah, so we'll see what's going on with that. And one thing I noticed yesterday in reading, the Chicago Cubs are 7-0, are undefeated in spring training, and the Chicago White Sox are winless in spring training. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
The White Sox are continuing their 2024. They're moving right into 2025, not winning many games or any
Unbelievable.
game so far. So, yep.
Unbelievable. NFL Combine started this week, and of course, a bunch of guys running around, a bunch of guys making headlines. Shedeur Sanders saying he's not going to throw during his pro day, but he is
Yep.
there taking interviews. Travis Hunter continuing to demand, I guess is the best word to put it, that when he gets drafted by the team, he does get drafted. Uh, he wants to be a two-way player. I, you know. And I'm not a pro scout certainly, and I'm not involved. But the one thing I don't understand is every time you think about two-way players, I mean, Dion occasionally played wide receiver. Some of the Patriot what do you call it, defensive backs occasionally played wide receiver. Troy Brown, I know, did it and things like that. But this guy is a true wide receiver slash cornerback. He won the collegiate award for best cornerback in college. He won the collegiate award for best wide receiver in college, and he won the Heisman Trophy as the best football player in college. let me ask you this question.
Mhm.
Playing wide receiver and defensive back, I know you take a lot of snaps, but you're not physically involved in every snap.
And that's why he was able to pull that off at Colorado for, well, actually, even before that at Jackson State. He's played now 4 years for Deion Sanders, and he's played both ways for 3 years at Colorado and 1 year at Jackson State. So, you could pull that off because the physical demand, like you had mentioned earlier when we were talking before we went on, if you're an offensive lineman, you're getting hit every play. Whereas if you're a wide receiver, 70% of the time you're just running a route. There's 30% of the time where you're going to get hit, where you're going to pass and you're going to get tackled.
Even if it's 40, I mean, even if you're getting 12, 13 targets a game, those are
Mm-hmm.
the only times, except for a few running blocks, maybe. Those are the only times you're really involved in the physicality of the game. As a cornerback, again, you're covering a wide receiver. Well, if you're the best cornerback, odds are they're not throwing your way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So the only time you're really going to get involved is being in tackling after the play. I think it's worth a try. I mean, when we think of two-way players, at least in my mind, the guy that pops into my mind is Chuck Bednarik, the old Philadelphia Eagles. He played center and he played middle linebacker. Well, he was involved in every play.
Yeah.
This guy is not, and setting one more thing before setting up a package for him doesn't work in my mind because obviously when he comes in, everybody's going to focus on him.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's like when you mentioned the Patriots, some of the Patriot guys that played defense, and basically the only time they were on offense was some gadget play of some type where, you know, and again, the NFL team they were playing against, they knew about that and, would be in a position to defend that gadget play.
you think about this: if this guy comes to any pro team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except for he's going to be at least the number one A target, right?
Right.
So is it is it beyond belief to expect the fact that he's going to have 90 catches this coming year as a wide receiver?
I think that's yeah,
Right.
that's
And
reasonable.
if he defenses, I don't know, 50 plays, 50, 60 passes.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
only really involved in he's going to be on the field for every offensive or most offensive and defensive snaps, right? But then again, whoever team he gets on, first and goal from the 4, when they go to their jumbo package, he's going to be out of the game. So he's not going to be on every play, you know.
The hardest part probably for the pulling this off, and I'm just thinking about what he did at Colorado and Jackson State, is he's going to have to be involved in a lot of meetings all week. So he's going to be in, offensive meetings to go over the game plan, which, the meetings are several hours. And then he's also got to be involved in the defensive meetings. And then he's going to have to go out and practice both offense and defense. So there's a lot of time consumption. It's not just the Sunday, the game. There's a lot of preparation that he's going to have to be involved with during the week.
But he wants to do that, and
Yeah.
we'll get into a lot of the football players. We'll talk more about the combine next week. I don't want to get bogged down with that. The only other football news I want to mention has to do with Matthew Stafford. Apparently, everybody thought he was going to be traded to the Giants. The Giants had worked out a package, but late last night came out that he'd been meeting with Tom Brady, minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, and now the Raiders apparently uh, have jumped ahead of the Giants as the number one destination for Matthew Stafford. Uh, I would imagine his situation will be settled by next week when we get together. So we'll talk more about that. And once his situation is settled, we can talk more about where the Giants go as far as their number 3 pick. Uh, I still believe that the Giants, there are 2 generational picks in the draft. Abdul Carter of Penn State, although he's had some foot problems right now, but he's the closest thing to Micah Parsons, and
Mm-hmm.
he's not doing any workouts this week. He's going to perform at his pro date in Penn State, and of course, Travis Hunter. So if you have a chance to get either one of those two, I think those are more important picks than the 2 quarterbacks. Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. We'll talk more about that next week. Um, we got to get into, tomorrow's March. So we start to talk about March Madness. College basketball is at its height. We'll go, before we get into the more disappointing conversation that you're going to have, we're going to go to the happier conversation that I'm going to have, what happened earlier this week at Hinkle Field in Indiana with St. John's playing Butler. They gave me a little agita during that game. They gave up a big lead, and Butler fans were going crazy, but it never fails. The guy's last name was McCaffrey. I don't remember what his first name was. He's a transfer. He had no points in this first half. He had 7 points early in the second half. After he made a basket to get that seventh point, St. John's called timeout. He's jumping up and down, screaming and yelling, punching his chest. Butler lost. You know,
Yeah.
these guys don't realize the game isn't over until it's over. But
Yeah.
that brings us to
Now,
St. John's. You
the
know,
Butler game is really a trap game. You're just coming off of an emotional win against UConn.
oh yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough to get back up like that, after such a big game at the Garden. You go out to Indianapolis and you win, and that's But hat tip of the hat to St. John's for winning a trap game like that. Now they come back home. They play Seton Hall, which is I believe it's their final home game. So again, it'll be emotional tomorrow at the Garden as the St. John's fans and coaches bid the seniors well as they move on. And basically the St. John's team is a fairly older team because of the transfer portal. They've brought in guys from Seton Hall and Arizona and Kansas. They've got this team that's basically 23 and 24-year-old guys. And a matter of fact, you probably noticed it earlier in the year. Patino said he's not even going to recruit high school kids much anymore. He's going to be just using the transfer portal to bring in guys that will mesh the way they did this year.
And why not? I mean,
And why not? Yeah, it's working.
what's his name from Seton Hall? Dari Richardson.
Sorry, Richmond did.
Richmond. He wanted Marquette to lose so that tomorrow's game wouldn't be meaningless, but it wouldn't be a clinching game. Now tomorrow's game is very important for St. John's. He didn't want it to have to be against Seton Hall. He said he has all the respect in the world from the coach. Obviously, he has all of his friends are still there. Um, I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to go off and he's going to have an incredible game tomorrow. There's no doubt. Again, you said senior and a whole bit like that. Uh, but I think St. John's is on a roll. That doesn't take a genius to say that. We were talking beforehand. I really believe, and this is a big if, but if they can run the table between tomorrow and the Big East Championship, I
Yep.
think they're a two seed in the East. I really do.
I'd have to agree with that. They're going to wind up somewhere around 7 or 8 in terms of the rankings, and also that would get them a 2 seed. And we were talking earlier, one of the 1 seeds is going to be Duke, and they're going to try to put them in the East region. So I would think, if St. John's can run the table, they would be the 2 seed in the East, and potentially they would be meeting in Newark to determine who goes to the Final Four.
I mean, that would be incredible. But I mean, you talked to me about the quad ones and the quad one record right now is 3-4. But
Right.
if they run the table, that quad one record will go to 6-4 because they'll have three more quad wins. Creighton win during the regular season here, and then they'll have two quad one wins in the Big
Big
East
East
tournament.
tournament.
So
Right. They would if it went with chalk, they would beat UConn and they would beat Creighton
right.
Marquette winner, which is 2 more quad 1 wins.
Yeah.
So
And we'll get into plenty of that, going forward in the next couple of weeks. But one other thing about Hinklefield, we'll mention it quickly. Gene Hackman. Boy, when you think of Hinklefield, you think of Hoosiers, you think of Coach Dale, and you think of Gene Hackman. What happened to him and his wife this week, and the dog this week in New Mexico? It's still a little bit I'm not sure. I mean, apparently there was one report that said that his wife was dead 2 weeks. She had already started to quote unquote mummify. And from where his body was found in the mudroom off the kitchen, they expected he had fallen. There was no forced entry. There wasn't carbon monoxide poisoning, as everybody thought originally. So it's still under investigation. And something happened.
Yeah, really, tough story to read. When you're reading about this, you think of Gene Hackman. Obviously, we're doing a sports podcast. Hoosiers is one of the greatest sports movies ever. And so, like you said, when you're thinking about St. John's playing at Hinkle Fieldhouse, you think of Hoosiers and how in that movie they went into Hinkle Fieldhouse to play for the Indiana State Championship. But I mean, Gene Hackman, what an incredible actor! Just so many movies that are, movie. As you're flipping through TV, you see a movie, it's like Gene Hackman's in it. You stop and you watch it.
Yeah,
French Connection, Hoosiers,
unbelievable.
just
Before
amazing.
before we get to the bubble teams and before we get to the SEC, I'm looking at you here on the picture, and I see your eyes are tired, your eyes are dreary. I doubt you got very much sleep last night. Crushing defeat by Rutgers at Michigan last night, 84-82 on a buzzer beater. It was about 35-foot buzzer beater.
Yeah, it was a
Had
tough game. Tough game. Rutgers was winning 82 to 81 with 3 seconds left. Michigan calls timeout because their offense was not running very efficiently. And Coach Dusty May looked at that and he said, I got to call a timeout. We got to talk about this. And so they go out on the court. And Steve Peichel, the coach of Rutgers, looks at this and says, I'm going to call a timeout, set up a defense here. So the way I figured it, Vlad Golden, their 7-foot player, was having a great game. He had, I don't know, 24, 25 points at the time. You figure the ball's going inside. They've been all game. They've been going inside, points in the paint, the whole thing. So Rutgers apparently defended that very, very well. Danny Wolf, another 7-foot guy from Michigan's at the free throw line, double teamed. And it looks like, this is going just beautifully. And somehow Danny Wolf gets a pass off to this guy. What's his name? Anyway, he's at a 3 point line. Namari Newbert. He's like 35 feet away, and he lets the ball go with like a half second to go, and it goes all net. And it's just a crushing loss. Namari Burnett, that's the guy's name. He hits and he winds up with 20 points last night, and they win 84-82 on a 3-pointer at the buzzer. So Michigan is still in first place in the Big Ten because Michigan State the night before hit a 65-foot shot at the buzzer to beat Maryland. So Michigan State and Michigan are still 1 and 2 and tied for first in the Big Ten.
I mean,
Tough.
watching last night, I went to bed. The Rutgers was up at halftime, and I went to bed. I turned it on this morning and saw they lost by 2. And then when I watched, watching Boomer and Geo this morning on CBS Sports Network, and seeing, Steve Presti giving the review of it, the whole thing was devastating. But then they said, Jerry Recco, as the play-by-play announcer for Rutgers, does his coach's post-game interview. And when he got downstairs, I mean, now, we've been around Steve Peichel, Rutgers basketball for a long time now. He's been around for a long time. And apparently he ended up with 3 F-bombs in the first 9 seconds. And he was very angry about the refereeing. And I can understand that. An unranked team playing a ranked team at the ranked team's home near the end of the game, I gotta believe there were some calls that were made that shouldn't have been made.
Yeah, I actually turned the radio on to hear what Coach Peichel had to say, and I never heard him like that before either. He dropped like you said 3 F-bombs in 9 seconds. I'd never heard him do that, and I mean Burnett. I was just telling you that they called timeout with 3 seconds left. That's because 3 seconds before that, with 7 seconds, 6, 7 seconds to go, this guy Burnett that hit the three, he walked with no call. And I think when Dusty May saw that, he's like, "Oh gosh, we're in trouble," and he called the timeout. And he obviously walked, and there was no call. And the foul calls. Just to give you an idea, Michigan was in the bonus with 15 minutes and 38 seconds to go in the second half. They called 6 fouls on Rutgers in the first before the before the timeout in the with 16 minutes left to go in the second half, they already had six fouls.
And Rutgers was winning
So
at that point, right?
yeah, Rutgers had a really good first half. They were
So
up
I mean,
by 8 at the half.
so that, like I said, you never like to pin it on the refs and everything else like that, but still devastating loss. Puts Rutgers at 14 and 15, and their next home game is with who?
Well, they play at Purdue on Tuesday, and then they come home for the season finale against Minnesota on the 9th.
So they're gonna have to have Purdue is in free fall right now, so who knows what they'll be like when they play them on Tuesday. Uh, oh, really? So
No, I mean Purdue is in, they're on a 4 game losing streak. Rutgers is going to be obviously extremely. They're going to want to let it out on somebody probably on Tuesday night at Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. So, I wouldn't go ahead and say I think Rutgers is going to show up there. I think it's going to be a good game on Tuesday night.
quick question just popped into my mind. Do they come home or do they stay out there?
They'll be home. They're home now. They
They come
they
home
flew
now.
back last night. Yeah.
Okay, and then they go back out. All right. Um, the SEC. I mean, it just
Ooh,
gets
the
better,
SEC.
it gets better and better. I said 12. You told me now it's possibly 13 teams making it.
There's a big debate going on now, and it's going to depend on how the next couple of weeks shake out. But I mean, Georgia and Arkansas right now are on the bubble, and that could be a 13th team, depending upon how the SEC tournament goes. But you got 12 pretty much for sure.
Let's assume the SEC tournament goes according to plan. Every upper seed wins and Auburn wins the SEC, okay?
Yeah,
I guess the determinant as to how many SEC teams make it, because if you look at the bubble teams of SEC versus the rest of the bubble teams in the major conferences, ACC, Big East, Big 12, the SEC teams are better. All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So, I mean, if you had like a tournament of the bubble teams, the SEC would have the higher seeds. I guess a lot of the determination on who makes the tournament in terms of the SEC is going to have to do with the smaller conference championships. If the smaller
yeah,
conference championships hold,
yeah,
in other words, it's I know how some of those smaller conferences, the favorite loses but still gets the invite. Well, if that,
yeah.
you know,
You have to be careful because of the bid stealers. So there's going to be like in some conferences teams that are like you might have a team that's like 16 and 2, 15 and 3. They're getting a bid whether they win the auto bid or not. But then a bid stealer will come along and beat that team, and now they're getting the auto bid from that conference.
well,
While
that's
the
the
team
question.
that's
If the team that should get the auto bid loses to they're 15 and 3 and they lose
yeah,
to an 8 and 10 team in the finals,
yeah,
will get the bid.
yeah. Well, the auto bid will go
No,
to
no,
the
the auto
team that
bid
won.
goes to the winner, but does
Yeah.
the 15 and 3 team still get the bid?
Well, yeah, again, it depends on the conference and the strength of that. But there'll be some that happened last year. Seton Hall probably would have made the NCAA tournament last year, but it was like that last Friday and Saturday before Selection Sunday, there was like 4 or 5 bids that got
Yeah,
stolen.
like the Southeast and Western Regionals Conference,
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
Abercrombie
that happened.
State wins and they shouldn't. That's
Yeah,
gonna
you have to be careful of that. But I mean, in the SEC, you got teams, you got Texas, Georgia, Arkansas. Yeah, I mean, you got teams, Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt might be in already.
Vanderbilt,
It's
apparently, according to the last things I read, Vanderbilt's not a bubble team. They're in.
yeah, they might be in. So I mean, the SEC. I mean, well, let's just look real quick. Yeah, automatically, you got Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, Texas A&M, and Kentucky, and Ole Miss. So
That's
that's
eight.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, there's not even a conversation. Mississippi State is not a conversation. And then you come to Vanderbilt and you're getting close to no conversation. So then you're talking 12 teams, and I mean you got Arkansas, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma could even get in there. So
I mean,
the SEC is just
Arkansas has some
loaded.
quality wins. They have some quality wins on the road. They have some quality wins at home.
Yeah,
Let's give credit to John Calipari. He's managed to do with another team. I mean, that's really something. let's go back a minute to something you made the comment about with Rick Pitino. All right. We've argued, commented, discussed the portal and the NIL ad nauseum since it came about, both in football and basketball. How detrimental is a comment by a coach like Rick Pitino, who's a great coach, a Hall of Fame coach, everything else like that? I'm not going to be bothered with high school recruiting anymore. I'm just going to go to the portal. Now, think of the outstanding high school players in the New York metropolitan area that are not even now. What are they? Their job is to now go somewhere else, go to Seton Hall, go to Villanova, go to Syracuse, go somewheres to be noticed by Rick Pitino to come across in the portal. Is that the plan now?
I think that's the plan. I mean, so you have all these summer basketball showcases where the Peach Jam and
Right.
all these things, where all these college coaches show up all summer, recruiting these high school kids. You won't see Rick Pitino there anymore. He's not going there. He doesn't need to.
I mean, so you're trying to tell me that the top five high school seniors or juniors this year, I guess, because the seniors are already committed, um, who will be the top five high school seniors next year are not even getting a come see me from St. John's?
I think if you got a guy who's the top five guy who's like, a one and done kind of a guy, I can't see Patino just saying, oh, I'm not interested in him. But I mean, if you have like for example, a Dylan Harper or an
I was
Ace
going to say
Bailey
Dylan
kind of
Harper
guy,
played local basketball. He played
right?
high school basketball in New Jersey. So
On
you're
Moscow. Yeah.
so you're trying to tell me that Rick Pitino or one of the staff isn't coming to Don Bosco to see Dylan Harper, the junior, play. He's going to wait, and not that he's going to wait till he goes to Rutgers and then try to grab him, and that type of thing. But isn't I guess the answer is no. But isn't Rick Pitino taking a chance that the portal doesn't give him what he needs?
Well, based upon what he's doing this year, that's his strategy. And he came out and said it publicly. That's his strategy. He's basically the St. John season, hopefully for Rick Pitino, will be over, the first Monday in April. And then the portal closes like 2 weeks later. And he's going to spend those 2 weeks going to grab whoever he can.
Well, again, if you do, if you follow a routine and the routine breeds success, why shouldn't you follow the routine? You
He's
know,
got his
he
money
got out
guy,
of
the
the portal,
vitamin water owner, and Rapoli,
right?
and
Look who he
he's
got out of the portal this year and how they're
yeah,
contributing to the success of the team.
yeah, yeah. He got a kid from Arizona, a kid from Kansas, Kadari Richmond from Seton Hall.
And I guess when you stop and think about it, if you do that, you're not you're bringing in at worst case sophomores who have already had a year, so they're not making freshman mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, this year he brought in basically seniors, 22, 23-year-old
Yeah, no,
guys.
that was this year, but that's not going to happen every year. I mean,
Good. It could. I mean, when he goes into the portal April 8th, 9th, 10th, and he goes and visits these guys and says, hey, we just won the Big East regular season. We won the Big East tournament. We made the Elite Eight this year. You could be on that team. We play in the Garden. Look at all look
so,
what you get,
so
Madison Square Garden.
I mean, you're a coach of another team. You can't stop your players from doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, the old discipline of a coach would be if you don't work hard in practice, you're not going to play. Well, now you don't work hard in practice, you're not going to play. Screw you, I'm going into the portal. And somebody's going to grab me because I have the talent. Or maybe
Well,
I signed up with your team and your team stinks, but I mean, is Rick Pitino allowed to talk to anybody that's not in the portal? No.
no, that's
How do people know that people, in other words, when you go into the portal, you're going in blind, hoping somebody grabs you.
yeah, well, absolutely.
Well, wait
So
a minute. Didn't Cam Spencer go to Steve Peichel and say, UConn wants to give me $300,000? Didn't Cliff go to, so how did they were already in the
they
portal.
went in the portal. They went into the portal. So I'll give you an example. Rutgers is like everybody else. There's no difference between any of the schools. this year's team, there was only three guys from last year's team. So
Right.
the whole rest of the team, nine guys, all went into the portal and went somewhere else. Cliff went, to Alabama.
And
Derek Simpson went to St. Joe's. Each of the guys go to their own way.
so
And
this goes back to the argument about, for lack of a better word, salary cap in the portal.
exactly.
In other words, St. John's basketball has it over Rutgers basketball at the moment because we know St. John's basketball has a big donor. We don't
Right.
know what Rutgers has, and
Right.
again, we're also talking about a state school versus a private school, so there could be some problems between that. I mean, but
Yeah.
then you look at the state schools that are spending all this money, that again, I mean, is Michigan doing the same thing that St. John's is doing? Is Duke
Yeah, I
doing
would
the
think
same
so.
thing?
I would think, well, the SEC, the SEC went from being a mediocre basketball conference 7 or 8 years ago to being at the top of, because that's each of the SEC schools have the football money, and it's turning out the basketball money, and they've taken that football money, by the way, the SEC has, and every single team in the SEC has a tremendous coach, which is very highly paid.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just it's there's going to be a week where we're going to have nothing to talk about because there'll just be baseball around. And I mean, how much can we talk about balls and strikes? And we didn't even get into the ABS and touching your head to challenge. We'll get into that in a couple of weeks. But there's got to be a whole change. I mean, right now you see it in the football because you've got the Big Ten and the SEC dictating what the football playoffs are going to be like. And basically, if the Big 12 and the ACC and the rest of the conferences don't like it, screw it. We'll make our own championship.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. And you know that there's some network that's going to pay the Big Ten and the SEC to do that if they can't get it done.
That's a good point. And I just told you about the SEC and all the money, but the same in the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten basketball programs all have great coaches that are very highly paid, and there's a lot of money going out. Like you said, Michigan State, these guys, Illinois, they're pulling in top shelf players. The
Yeah.
schools are, and some schools have a guy like the vitamin water guys at St. John's, and some schools don't, and it's a shame because it's basically, money is going to talk now in the NCAA. Each school is, the schools that have the money are going to be able to buy the best players.
So what you have now is you have the NFL and the NBA as professional leagues, professional football league,
Yes.
and then you have the major conferences in college as semi-pro leagues, and then you
Well,
have
I think they're professional also now at this point. These are
okay,
professional.
well no, because not everybody's getting paid.
Well,
You know,
starting this year, pretty much everybody's going to get paid. Even you're not allowed to have walk-ons anymore. So even it's going to be, even your 12th and 13th player are going to be getting paid.
well, I mean, it's just it seems to me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because for years, colleges made money off their athletes, and the athletes got nothing for it. And that's why the NIL came in. But this whole portal thing, you want to do it and you want to pay for guys, that's great. But you got to set up a number. Just because the vitamin water guy has got, as I said to you before, let's just assume that Steve Cohen went to Seton Hall, all right, or
Yeah.
Steve Cohen went to Manhattan University, Manhattan College, I mean, something like that. All of a sudden, hey, open checkbook, bring the best
Yeah.
guys. And again, that's playing by the rules right now for the simple reason that there are no rules.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of these guys, basketball coaches, got in trouble. Sean Miller, Will Wade, Patino. In their former lives, what a lot of stuff they were doing was illegal. Is now legal.
I mean, how many seniors, remember senior basketball players would go into a jewelry store and buy some ridiculous piece of jewelry, and the jeweler would, no, 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 and the jeweler would sort of like say, okay, you owe me that money. You're going to be drafted in a few months, and you'll pay me back. And that was illegal. That was against the answer. You
I
know,
was listening to Coach Peichel a couple of days ago talking about, like, 3 years ago, you buy a kid a bagel, it's like, it's an infraction.
I'll go one
Now
step.
it's like,
my cousin plays for a bluegrass band out in San Francisco, California, my cousin Dory. And he posted something the other day. You never know who's going to come see me play. Taller guy. I looked at it right away. I knew exactly who it was. So I go to the comments and who's the big guy? Who's the tall guy? Well, the tall guy was Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, right? I see Steve Kerr. What's the first thing I think of? 1972, when Steve Kerr couldn't take, when the University of Arizona donor was willing to give Steve Kerr and his mother the plane to fly to the
To the
Middle
funeral.
to pick up his father's body, and the
Yeah,
NCAA said, no, you can't go. All right.
yeah.
And that just goes to now obviously that's 55, 54 years ago, 53 years ago. And things have certainly changed, but
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like you said, Steve Michael couldn't buy a kid a bagel.
Get a bagel
Oh, and
4 years.
now the guy says, give me $1 million, I'm going somewhere else. So it's the Wild West. It's crazy. And eventually it gets fixed. Um,
I'm
but
not so I'm not so sure if it's going to be fixed. I think this is going to be the way of collegiate athletics. What happened was obviously, CBS, ESPN, Fox Sports are paying a lot of money to broadcast these games. And as many coaches have said, the workers should be paid. And the workers are now going to be paid.
I'm not going to complain. Everybody can, you always wish everybody can get what they can get. That brings us to the end of another broadcast. Just to let everybody know, we're now on Facebook. So hopefully you'll be able to find us there just by searching mine or Elliot's name. Because when I put it on Facebook, I tag Elliot. So if you tag mine or Elliot's name, it'll come up. And this week's podcast is Combine, Spring Training, and March Madness. So I want to thank everybody for listening. And Elliot, have a good weekend, and we'll be talking to you again pretty soon next week.
Yep. Have a good weekend. See you Friday.